One reason we started RVing is our love of warm weather. So we've spent most of the past 14 winters in places like Mexico, Florida, and most often, the desert Southwest. But that doesn't mean we do that every year. 5 years ago, we spent the entire winter in a northern climate and made a video about how we prepared for a long-term stay in the cold. That was the only experience we'd had with being in the RV during a pretty serious snowstorm. Until now. Even though we were only expecting to be in winter weather for a couple of weeks this year, we got hit with sub-freezing temperatures and nearly 2 feet of snow. So here are the steps we took for a short trip to the winter. Of course, a lot of what we're doing to prepare for the weather is the same as for a long-term stay, but we can save a few steps since we won't be in it for long. The two things we're dealing with are cold and snow. The snow is beautiful, and it's kind of cool to be buried in it, like when we were kids, in our own cozy little fort. Of course, that's only true if we stay warm, and with the resources we need to be comfortable. So we're taking some steps to deal with the cold. When we spent the entire winter up north, we wrapped insulation around our freshwater hose and used heat tape to prevent it from freezing. But for a short stay like we're doing this year, we're not going to bother. This time, we're filling our freshwater tank, then disconnecting the hose, which keeps it out of the cold so it won't freeze. Every few days, as needed, we reconnect, top up the freshwater tank, and store it again. To protect the water lines in our basement, we put this 60-watt incandescent bulb here in the water compartment whenever the temperature is forecast to fall below freezing. It puts out plenty of heat to keep things warm enough. If it were to drop down into single digits, we'd probably take further steps to warm the basement, like 2 light bulbs instead of 1. We also keep a thermometer down here so we can monitor the temperature. This outdoor module broadcasts to an indoor receiver, so we don't even have to go outside to confirm that everything's okay in the basement. To reduce the amount of cold air blowing in, we stuffed a pair of rubber dumping gloves around the sewer hose. Again, if the temperature got really cold, we'd probably stow the hose and close that opening altogether. Now you may be wondering why we need a light bulb down here when our RV is equipped with basement heat. That's because the basement blower only comes on when we use our onboard furnace. But we try to avoid that because it burns through propane like crazy. Since we're not staying long, we don't want to bother connecting to an external propane tank, even if there's one available. And the last thing we want to do out here is run out of propane. To conserve, we use 2 alternate sources of heat, our electric space heater and our portable vent-free infrared propane heater. This great piece of gear sips propane. And even though we need to leave a window cracked slightly when using it to allow fresh airflow, it puts out so much heat it more than makes up for that. And it uses 0 electric power, which is important because we're only on 30 amp service here. The space heater uses about 10 amps, leaving plenty available to keep the batteries charged and run our residential refrigerator. That leaves enough power that we can either heat water on electric or use the microwave, but not both at once. There's enough amperage to keep the tank heat pads on too, since they don't use very much. Another good way to conserve resources is to keep the interior temperature a little on the cool side, so dressing warmly and using heavy covers on the bed is standard operating procedure. We have flannel sheets, a fleece blanket, and a down comforter to stay nice and toasty at night. Managing our resources this way, our 32-gallon propane tank can last a month or more. That's with nighttime temperatures ranging from the upper teens to the low 30s, and daytime highs from the upper 20s to upper 30s. If it gets too much colder, we'll need to run the furnace and either shorten our stay or get a propane refill. Besides cold, we're also dealing with another heavy snowfall. It really is beautiful, but we need to get it off the roof before too long. Once it starts to melt, water can penetrate into the RV because of something called ice damming. Even if you've been great about inspecting your roof for cracks in the decor, meltwater held in place by snow and ice can get deep enough to back up into vents and other openings that wouldn't normally leak. Luckily, our Tough Top awning slide toppers can take just about anything, and they help keep snow off the slides, a likely place for ice damming to cause a problem. After we saw the forecast, we picked up a small, inexpensive snow shovel. It's very important to use a plastic shovel with no metal edge on it. We don't want to damage anything on the roof. You'll want to be especially careful if you have a rubber roof, so you don't tear the material. Our fiberglass roof is pretty impervious, but we still want to go slowly and carefully so we don't damage vents, skylights, wiring, or anything else, including ourselves. Slipping off the roof, even with a snowbank to break our fall, isn't our idea of winter fun. We don't need to clear the roof completely, just as long as we get rid of the deep snow so that meltwater can run off instead of backing up and causing a leak. Even though one of the main reasons we started RVing was to avoid winter weather, now that we're not forced to be in it, it doesn't seem quite as bad. Just knowing we could drive south if we wanted to is enough to keep us feeling warm. And a good supply of hot chocolate doesn't hurt either. If you find our videos helpful, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. You can also visit us at the RVgeeks.com for more resources, including discounts on great RV gear. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you're staying warm wherever you're spending the winter.